Some of you have asked for it, and now all of you are gonna get it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my Zero to Hero challenge. This is the beginning. You're seeing on your screen now the Shadow Priest leveling taking place. I let people from stream and Twitter and YouTube and everything come in and vote on what class you wanted to see, what spec you wanted to see. On the list, personally, I was hoping we were going to see a Sass Rogue or Mistweaver Monk or Brewmaster Monk, something fun, doing a different role, healing or tanking, something different than what I normally do, and seeing how high I can go up on that. But for some reason, some unknown reason to me, you all decided on Shadow Priest. So I thought I'd get this series underway, get this started. However, my Zero to Hero started maybe a little bit differently from the way they normally would start, which is normally people are at level 60, they're already ready to go. However, for me, my priest was level 50 on the Thursday, and I announced to everyone in stream that I would be doing this challenge on Friday evenings, which means that I only had the one day to get this character prepped, and so a lot of Friday just featured me leveling this character up to 60 as quickly as I could, and then I got into a little bit more of the challenge. But I kind of wanted to preface this and explain exactly what this challenge is, why I'm doing it, and what I'm hoping to achieve from it, and how you're going to be able to keep pace with it and see how things are taking shape. Basically, a Zero to Hero, if you've never seen what it is before, became popularized by Yumi recently with their Zero to Hero. I think they've been mainly playing different healer roles or different healer specs, and going through dungeons and showing people basically their thought process and how they're looking to increase the chances of success in the dungeons that they're running. And I wanted to do something similar. I was talking to my buddy Just Russ, and I thought, yeah, you know what, let's try this out. This could be a fun little piece of content on a Friday evening to hang out with stream and know that we're going to be doing this challenge. But basically, it's taking a fresh character from level 60, shutting off the Raider.io connection to your main character, so anyone looking at this character here would have no idea it's me unless they are watching my stream or watching YouTube or something like that, and they know about it because of that. Which is going to be, in the grand scheme, very, very few people, a fraction of the amount of people that actually play this game. So I'm not too mega worried about people finding out that this is me. I'm not that famous, luckily. So that's the plan, is I'll detach my Raider.io, I'll be playing this character, but I wanted to go a few extra steps with this. I also wanted to not research into Shadow Priest at all, so I haven't looked at Raider.io, I haven't looked at what the top Shadow Priests are playing in Mythic Plus, what Legendary, Covenant, Talents, anything like that, Conduits, none of it. So I'm going in completely blind to this. I'm going to be learning this new spec as if I'm a new player coming into the game and who goes, oh, I've heard Mythic Plus is fun, how does it all work? So that's my goal. And then I kind of chose to do this at a very poor time. Normally people do this at the end of a season, not at the beginning of a season. But for me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try doing this at the beginning and just see how I go, because that's just how things panned out. But there's some added complications to it when you do this at the beginning of a season, because everybody's really greeting for those weekly 15s, because everybody's just trying to get the top gear so that they can level up their, gear up their characters, get the item level. So you have people that are like 3.8k IO season 3 signing up for 15 keys with people who are 1500 IO last season. So it's a whole mixed bag, and it's made way more difficult trying to actually get into dungeons in this situation. But not only that, all the dungeons are new. So everyone, instead of having the last 2 years or something to get used to these dungeons, people have had the last couple of days to get used to these new old dungeons. So that complicates things further, because when I start getting into the Mythic Plus section of these dungeons and this challenge, people are going to be making a lot of critical mistakes, and there are going to be a lot of punishing mechanics and things happening in these keys that could make this challenge exceptionally difficult. Not only that, but I set myself the goal of trying to achieve 3k Raider.io score. However, we have 8 dungeons this season, not 10. So that could really be a challenge. I'm going to have to be watching that very, very closely and see just how achievable that actually will be, because I believe 2k IO is going to be KSM, so I might have to eventually settle around about that 2.5k mark, considering I want to do multiple of these, and it's not something that I'm going to be doing every single day on stream. It's going to be more so like a Friday afternoon, Friday evening, most of the time, as long as I'm not casting that week. So it could be a very, very difficult challenge for me. So it's going to be fun to undertake, but I'm fully aware that 3k might be like a little bit overshooting it. 3k might be what generally like is considered, you know, 3k this season might be the 4k last season. So it could be a little bit out of reach, but I'll see. I want to definitely push this as far as I can and see what we can really achieve. And when I feel like we've achieved something great, then that's when we can kind of move on to the next spec. So keep an eye on me playing alternative specs as well. But you're going to be able to follow along hopefully every Friday. I should be doing these on stream, twitch.tv/Psybear_TV, linked in the description. But also, I should then be editing them and putting them up on YouTube, hopefully by Monday. The plan is to edit them on Saturday and then get them up on Monday for viewing. But that is basically the challenge for me. That's outlining everything. So no attachment to main score, no researching the spec, and I have to just see how far I can push without any assistance. It's going to be completely pugged. No one from stream is allowed to help me or anything like that. If I know if there's anything fishy going on, I'll see it, I'll spot it out, and I will leave groups and stuff to make sure that I'm not getting boosted in any way, shape, or form. It's going to be very, very fun to get into. So let's see how this went first week. So initially when I began this challenge, I chose or opted into the Threads of Fate leveling, which in the grand scheme was perhaps not the quickest way to have done things, but it was just the way that I thought might just be, I can get my Covenant, I can jump into dungeons and just get going. But if you want to actually be efficient, I believe the best way is to normal level up until 55 in Bastion, and then jump into the Threads of Fate. And awkwardly, I chose to do this challenge just after the 50% XP bonus was applied, so for me, this took a little bit longer on the Friday than I planned to. And when I started leveling this with the Threads of Fate, I was looking at all the different covenants for Shadow Priest, and honestly, none of them actually jumped out to me and went, oh, this has obviously got to be the one that you take for Mythic Plus as a Shadow Priest. They all seemed a little bit lackluster. Mind Games, I know, is obviously a fantastic tool in PvP. The Necro, I know, is sometimes played by like healing priests, because it's happened in higher level keys where priests have gone, oh, I can go Necro, but I lose a bit of DPS. So I knew that Necro was potentially on the table, though I'd never actually read what the ability did. So initially I opted for, and I know obviously Night Fae as well actually is also used. Benevolent Fairy is used for people to reduce their major CD, so I knew as well healing priests also can take Night Fae to help out somebody in their group. I've definitely had it on my Feral before. I've been given Fae Guardians. It feels very nice. But I initially set my heart on Kyrian, because I thought, oh, this seems like it could end up being pretty good, especially with some of the talents for Shadow Priest, which is where you can apply Vampiric Touch to multiple targets. You can apply your, I'm trying to remember all of my different abilities now, but you Searing Nightmare, and then you press my number 4 on my bar now. I can't actually remember what it's called. I'm still learning. Please bear with me. But it applies your Shadow Word Pain to everything. Searing Nightmares, that's what it's called. Applies your Shadow Word Pain to every mob in AoE. So I thought, oh, maybe that's like a good little combination. And then my Mind Blast does more damage for each target affected by Vampiric Touch. And I thought, like, oh, this maybe all feeds in nicely. Remember, I'm not researching any of these talents myself. I'm coming up with this all completely blind. At this stage, don't really know what any of the legendaries are going to do. So it's all very, very fresh and very new. And it was, for me, a massive kind of jump into the fire to the fire pan. What is it? Jumping into the wok. For me, I jumped into the wok today. Okay, out of the frying pan into the fire. That's what I did. And for me, it was tough to try and figure out what might be best. But after a couple dungeons, I figured out, oh, actually, I really don't like how Kyrian works. I think Necro is actually going to be the better option once I'd played a couple dungeons from level 50 to 60. So I ended up going Necro instead. And actually, after kind of coming up with some ideas as well on stream and talking things through, I was speaking to Public, which is one of the like massive personality in the Priest Discord as a like diehard Shadow Priest, right? So they came into stream, they were kind of, I had a no back seating going on. I was like, chat, I want to learn this on my own. Don't, you know, like don't give me any advice, but if I have questions as I'm starting to build this together, and I throw a question to you, let me know if it's in any way kind of correct. So I found out that yes, Necro is probably the better option, but not necessarily super mega impactful in keys. I then found out as well, having playing things, that there's potentially maybe 2 different builds that I can go when it comes to talents. You either have the Searing Nightmare Mindflay build, which is, I got the feeling from stream that not everybody loves this kind of gameplay because of how, I guess, simplistic it is, or how, I don't know, if maybe it's like awkward to play. For me, it did feel like a little bit awkward, but maybe that's just because it's new and I'm getting used to playing ranged as a pure melee kind of guy. So it was just very new. You then also have a different build where you can actually play Misery and Psychic Link. So your Vampiric Touch is also going to be applying Shadow Word Pain to the target, which is quite useful and allows them to like multi-dot quite nice, maybe in say like Theater of Pain or Mists of Turn Aside. That's what I'm getting the sense. This has not been confirmed to me, but this is something that I'm getting the sense of, where you have these maybe 1 to 4 target encounters and you can quite quickly spread multi-dots to targets. And then you can play your Psychic Link, which Mind Blast is then going to deal 60% damage to all other targets affected by your Vampiric Touch. But what this means is that you're actually doing 8 globals worth of things in 4 globals because you're getting double dot spread. So this looks like a fun kind of build that I could also see myself opting to play in some of those dungeons. It's definitely going to be something that I'm looking to swap around with. Now, I haven't yet chosen my legendary, and this is actually the state of my character after the end of day 1, but we can kind of look at that in a little bit. For now, we'll kind of continue with some of the VOD stuff. So when I was initially leveling from 50 to 60, I did actually end up getting a little bit of a boost here from a few people from chat, just to speed the process along, because of course the challenge does officially start at level 60, and I wanted to make sure that we had time for that content on Friday's stream. But when I was initially playing these leveling dungeons, I found it so very difficult to really get into the rhythm and the flow of playing not only range, but also Shadow Priest as one of those specs that you feel like you need to be, you have a lot of setup. You need to make sure that you are in combat for a decent length of time and that things aren't just going to be absolutely falling over, getting clapped down immediately. So I found it very, very difficult to get to grips with the spec when I was initially leveling. And so you could even see the confusion on my face when I'm speaking, where I'm just like, wait, do I want to do this or do I want to do that? Oh, everything's dead. And so it was very much a struggle kind of getting in the muscle memory of how to play Shadow. But once I got to level 60, things definitely shifted that little bit more, and I found that my damage was actually coming online just naturally being in those environments. The whole level 50 to 60 experience was, I mean, it went by quite quick and we were having a good time with chat, but I didn't really get to learn much of the spec the way I would have perhaps liked to. And for me, this was a spec that I haven't probably played in a long time. And of course, as well, you don't develop the skills that you want, that you're going to be taking into Mythic Plus at a higher level. You don't get to learn those skills in these leveling dungeons because things die too quickly and nothing really is impactful enough for you to learn things like when to kick, when to, you know, fear your mob, Psychic Scream things. I think that's the name of the ability. The other one, Psychic Horror, where you stun things, like Shackle, when am I going to be using that? It was really hard to incorporate any of the additional aspects of the spec beyond just pure rotation because of the way in which mobs just fall over at this level of dungeon. So yeah, Shadow Priest was definitely one of those harder specs to pick up just from the leveling experience. But again, once we got to level 60, that's when things started to change a little bit and when the fun started to really kick in. So once I hit level 60, then I was suddenly in that danger territory. You hit level 60 on a new character and you think, right, what the hell do I have to do now? Do I go gearing? Do I go to Torghast? Do I start farming Cosmic Flux? What do I do? Do I try and jump into Mythic? What do I do now? Luckily for me, this is the beginning of a new patch, so gearing was very straightforward. It was go and do world bosses, go and try and just scrounge my way through Zereth Mortis and pick up any little upgrades I can, trying just to get into heroic dungeons and eventually mythic zeros in order to get very, very quick, efficient item level gains. More than anything else in the game will really give you, because mythic zeros have just been updated. Well, mythic and heroic dungeons have just been drastically increasing item level. So right now is a really good time to be trying to gear up these characters, and that's exactly what I tried to do. Oh, and by the way, if you ever wondered why I hate paladins, it's because they're all cringe IRL. I mean, check this guy out. Like, chat, you make me choose Shadow Priest, right? You vote on Shadow Priest overwhelmingly, and then you come and grief me. You make it even harder than it already is. Now, the most important thing for me when I was level 60 was making sure that everybody knew just how this challenge is going down. I am the proud wielder and proud owner of Anathema, or Anathema as some people call it, and Benediction, which is an item that you can only get in Vanilla WoW, and it's something that I managed to get in Vanilla and Burning Crusade. I think you could maybe even get it towards the end of Wrath of the Lich King as well, up until a time. So, you know, I've got that bad boy. I'm holding on to that, and I thought I'd put it to good use here on this priest during this challenge so everybody knows that I'm the real deal. Now, the rest of the challenge, I started getting things set up, so I went into the Necrolord hub. I started getting set up here, made sure I unlocked my conduits and all those sorts of things, because realistically at this point, it's very, very hard at 150 item level to just jump straight into Mythic Zeros or Heroic Dungeons or anything like that. So you have to be smart with how you start getting things set up, and you have to invest in the long haul. So it made sense to come get a few extra Renown levels, get my conduits sorted out. And you can actually, this is a nice little tip, if you go to the Flight Master in Oribos, you can actually even just buy 200 item level conduits for every single conduit. Which, I mean, I spoke to Chad about that during this challenge, and there were people coming into stream and saying oh, this is, this thing is cheating, oh, this thing isn't cheating, and everyone was weighing in on what they felt was or wasn't allowed during this challenge. But for me, this isn't an Iron Man, right? I'm not going to be doing this whole challenge in gray gear. That's not the difficult part. The most difficult part and the most important is going to be pugging my keys completely anonymous. That is going to be the most challenging part of this challenge, right? So for me, getting 200 item level conduits is not the hard part, right? I could go and farm conduits for a couple hours, I don't care. That's not a big deal. It's just time consuming, but it's not challenging, and it's not gonna really be relevant to the rest of the challenge. So I thought, you know what, for me, I'm just gonna get these conduits. I'm gonna get some things to help me get a bit of a leg up. I didn't send over gold for my main character. I didn't send over materials, reagents, anything like that. Didn't send over Cosmic Flux. Didn't send over Valor. Didn't send over anything like that. So everything else for me is just completely fresh, and I'm doing it all on my own. But little things here and there, account-wide things, I don't mind necessarily picking up, because I don't think it's the end of the world to do that. So apart from that, I kind of just started to get all my conduits and everything set up, and get my callings and things from the Necrolord zone, and make sure that I'm at least making headway with this, so that over the following few weeks, I'm at least making progress there. So when it came down to actually choosing which conduit and soulbinds I was going to opt for, I had a couple thought processes in my mind. One of them was, oh, okay, I know that Kevin's very good, so it could end up just being my boy Kevin the Ooze. But I was also very aware that I believe the Emini tree gives you haste, which is quite important as a Shadow Priest. I'm imagining, right? Again, I haven't researched my stat weights and all those kinds of things, but I'm very aware that haste is quite critical for Shadow Priest because it's just pretty obvious. After that, I actually am not sure if you go haste crit or haste mastery, but I am aware that mastery is very, very strong and quite potent for Shadow Priest. So for me, it was like, oh, do I go the haste? However, the haste from the soulbind only comes online when things start dying. So I was like, right, I don't think I'm going to be going with that just because that could be quite awkward. I don't want things to be happening when things are dying. I want my damage to come throughout the whole of the fight. So I ended up opting for Kevin instead. Now, when it came to actually selecting my conduits themselves, I had to read through most of them, and I realized that Festering Transfusion, which is the, Covenant one, I thought wasn't very good because it's not a great, Unholy Nova is a bit of a whatever ability. But then some of these really took my fancy. So I believe I went with Rabid Shadows, Mind Devourer. So Mind Devourer here, Mind Blast deals 7% increased damage, has a chance to make your next Devouring Plague cost no insanity. I thought that was really, really good because of the way the Mastery interacts, but also the way that Devouring Plague works, where you can stack Devouring Plagues and they kind of just snapshot on top of one another, or Pandemic onto one another, really. So I thought, oh, that would be quite good. And also the 50 insanity saving is quite impactful. So I ended up going for those. And Haunting Apparitions, I thought my playstyle isn't built around that right now. I don't have enough haste. Maybe that's more of a single target thing. And then Festering Transfusion just didn't really seem worthwhile. So those are the three I ended up opting for. When it came to choosing my defensive traits, I know how it can go in high level Mythic Plus. So that's what I'm trying to prep for. So anything that just reduces my damage incoming is really powerful because it can stop you from getting one shot and maybe you go down to 10% health or 20% health, which just keeps you alive, allowing your healer to build you back up again and heal you so that you're not just getting one shot by, say, Zav in Theater of Pain, or who knows what's in store with some of the old school dungeons that we're going to be having this season as well, which I have had a chance to play around with, but of course I'm not super expert on them yet, but I will be soon enough, I'm sure. That's the plan. Just gotta keep doing them, keep doing them, and get used to them as a Shadow Priest as well. That'll be quite exciting. But after that, once I got my conduit sorted, it was pretty much everything set now. The only other things I really need to do, besides just smashing through dungeons for the next few weeks, is trying to work my way through Zereth Mortis so that I can get my Unity Legendary, I can get Cosmic Flux as the resource to actually craft my Legendary, but then I can also just unlock a little bit of extra item levels from gear and try and get this character online so I can jump into those dungeons as soon as possible. So this was very much just trying to get the character set up so that I can do what everyone's actually interested in, which is jumping into the Mythic Plus aspect of this challenge and trying to figure out exactly what I need to do in there to try and get 3k IO. At this point in the challenge as well, I was having fun the whole time along. And leveling to 60 from 50 really didn't feel boring. It didn't feel tedious. It was kind of okay, and I didn't mind it. I think knowing in my head that I was building up to this challenge was quite cool. Knowing that there's a bigger picture that I'm trying to build towards was fun. And a lot of people were coming into chat and telling me just how good Shadow Priest is right now compared to how it has been. Obviously knowing that it's not meta or anything, but that it could actually probably perform pretty well this season was quite nice to hear, because hopefully if community perception changes by the time this character is really online and I'm doing 18, 19, 20 keys, hopefully people have changed their mentality enough towards Shadow Priest that I might actually have a good chance of jumping into groups more easily. And that's really going to be the main difficulty that I find with this challenge, is just getting invited to groups, particularly with how things could be and how, I don't want to say elitist, but how optimized everyone tries to be for Mythic Plus these days, right? It doesn't matter if you're doing a 10 key, a 4 key, or a 24 key, people want the best thing. So now hearing from chat that Shadow Priest is actually doing okay, and knowing that it's actually going to be quite fun to play, hey, that sounds good to me. Let's jump into it. something that a lot of people haven't really told me too much about is how useful Shadow Priest will be, or how not useful it will be in keys. People haven't really been filling me in on ways in which I can like min-max with Shadow Priest, and ways in which I can help the team, help the group and stuff. But obviously, I'm trying not to get that information from people. I'm trying to figure that out for myself. So later on, you'll definitely see in dungeons where I'm trying to figure out some of these things and thinking like, okay, can I shackle this mob? Can I fear this mob? What happens if I do fear? Do the mobs run awkwardly? Do they run and then immediately break after a few seconds so I can use them as a quick CC? Like, what's going to happen with me trying to use all my utility? Of course, as well, I've been just trying to figure out my rotations, but I'll get into that in a little bit, and I'll save that for some more of, like, kind of the dungeon play-by-play. But for now, just kind of leveling through, or working my way through Zereth Mortis was quite fun. It was, you know, just... It feels kind of good to jump into World of Warcraft and have a goal, have a vision of something that you want to achieve, and be working towards that. And it's something that I definitely miss, and it's not something that I actively have right now when I'm playing my other characters. When I jump on my Feral, when I jump on my Survival, it's just like, right, let me just ZZZ my way through this. I don't really care what's happening. I just want to get through this as soon as possible so that I can get into dungeons and be as strong as possible, or get into raid and be ready to rock. So jumping into Zereth Mortis and actually having a goal in mind, having a vision, and trying to optimize this spec, trying to get better and better, and trying to get the muscle memory down and going, right, I pressed this ability, what am I looking to do next? Getting used to the ebb and flow of how many actions you have to perform before you're going to have a certain level of insanity generated, and getting used to how that opener, you know, just going through iteration of that opener again and again and again, and just getting used to that mental note of like, right, when can I do my Devouring Plague? When can I start Mind Flay, or not Mind Flay, but the AoE one? Can't even remember what it's called now, but Searing Nightmare. And when can I start doing those things? When can I start doing my AoE rotation and getting those Searing Nightmares out? Like, running through all that in my head and getting that muscle memory is critical for me. And you'll see in dungeons later, like, that's something that I'm very much trying to focus on. When I'm trying to get a feel for a spec, it's not just like, right, what do my buttons do? It's how do all of my buttons interact with one another? And when can I use what? What's global locked? What isn't? When am I gonna, like, find times in my rotation to be able to move a few steps if I need to? And during that time, what button is gonna be best to press? Do I just need to Shadow Word Pain things? Can I pop a quick Mind Flay and then move? Or, you know, can I proc my Devouring... can't remember what it's called now, but the free-to-use Mind Blast. See, it's fun right now because I don't know everything, and it's okay that I don't know everything. You're probably watching at home and thinking like, oh man, Psy, like, come on, you're such a noob. How do you not know the name of this ability? You've been playing the spec all day. But I'm getting better and better with those things, but something that I'm gonna learn and pick up, and hopefully soon enough, Shadow Priest will be one of my most well-known specs in this game, which will be fun. Like, part of this challenge, part of the interesting thing for me is going to be learning new things, and not just learning what they do, but how they do it, why they do it, what the mindset is of the player when they're playing Shadow, right? Like, what are you trying to do in a group? So that then if I'm, who knows, if I'm casting Race to World First, if I'm casting an MDI or something like that, TGP, if those days come again, well then I can go, oh, yeah, the Shadow Priests here, they're looking to do this, they're looking to do that. They really want a boss that lets them stand still and get their rotation off. Or actually, they're okay with multi-dotting and multi-dotting on the move, or casting on the move, and things like that. For me, learning whether or not they'll be able to do those things and how efficiently they'll be able to do them. Can they play a different talent build or a legendary or something like that, which might be less optimal? But actually, this fight has heavy movement, so now they could be leaning into that playstyle instead. Learning all those things is going to be really, really fun for me. So that's kind of the goal here, the journey, and something that I'm very excited, and is what it's pushing me to want to keep going with this, is just learning those things. This is pretty much everything I did. I also tried to jump in on a couple of the world bosses in preparation for this character, because I know that this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. So I didn't want to just go straight into heroic dungeons. Not that I even could, because I didn't have the item level. And I didn't want to just go to the auction house and just buy up a bunch of gear and then go, right, I'm going to jump into heroic dungeons and then mythic zeros and then mythic plus, and I'm literally never ever going to do anything ever again. So I was like, no, I want to take my time and do this right. So I went and did the world bosses, did a little sweep there, did a little sweep of Zereth Mortis, got a host and raid from Teddles. Thanks for that one. Appreciate that, brother. Sorry I'm not playing the other goated caster of all time, the Boomkin, but who knows, maybe that can be the next time around on this challenge. And unfortunately with the world bosses, I didn't get anything good. Now, a heads up right now is in Revendreth this week, this reset, depending on when you're watching this video, you can actually go and get 285 gear, or 280 gear, I believe it is. I think it's actually 285. From the world boss, and of course this boss here drops something like 240 something as well if you can get it. Unfortunately, I wasn't lucky enough to get any loot from either of the bosses, which, I mean, it doesn't set me back, it just doesn't push me forward, it doesn't excel me forward, so fair enough. Still got some good resources, got some reputations, ready to continue on. After this, it was then time for me to go and do a couple world quests on the mainland as well. I managed to go and get a trinket just to up that item level. I was running a level like 58 trinket from like 4 expansions ago. I don't even know what item level 60 is. So managed to get some of that stuff short up, managed to get a little bit of item level, and then it was time to jump, or try my luck at trying to get into a mythic 0. So let's see how that went. Oh, and chat, something that was super important that I haven't actually told you about yet during this challenge, the most important thing, is that these challenges are going to be during what's called Soju Fridays. I'm stealing this from Absurge, okay? He's not the only guy that likes a good soju. So this is going to be something that I'm doing on a Friday. If I'm casting that weekend, like I am for this upcoming weekend, August like 11th or 12th, whatever that is, I won't be able to do it on the Friday, so I might be doing it on the Thursday, for example, or the Wednesday or something, just to cover it. But I will be trying to partake in a little bit of soju here and there, just to add a little bit of spice, maybe make some of these a little bit more interesting and stuff, and add that extra element of, I don't know, panic when I have a couple sojus deep and I'm standing in frontals and mechanics. I have no clue what they do and trying to figure out what the hell my abilities are called. So it should be a little bit of fun. Along the way as well, as I was able to actually start doing a bit of questing and doing a bit more of my rotation in its full depth, I started to figure out that there are going to be some macros that I'm absolutely going to want to need, or going to want to have. And this is something that stems from just playing a lot of characters over time, and you get used to pretty much World of Warcraft is a very linear game. Like, everything's basically the same. Everybody has like an interrupt, everybody has a stun, everybody has like a dispel or like a buff or something that they can do that's going to help their group. And they all work in very similar ways, right? They're always going to be at a time where, oh, I'm in the middle of a spell cast, but I really need to psychic horror this mob. I don't want to have to like move and then cast it and stuff like that. Oh, can I make a cancel cast macro and then cause it to cast my psychic horror? I think that's what it's called, the stun. Whatever the hell the stun is called. Or can I dispersion this? And if I dispersion, but I only want a dispersion for like a mechanic that's coming in, and then I want to quickly stop the dispersion because after that one mechanic that comes in, nothing else is going to hit me again. Can I just, say I'm on the first boss of Necrotic Wake, and he's gonna do his spew on me. Well, I just want to dispersion that, and then I want to immediately cancel it so that I can get back to my rotation. I don't want to have to go up and on my auras go and right click that button, so having some macros that will cause your dispersion to be used, and then if you press the button again it will cancel the aura of your dispersion. Things like that can just speed up your gameplay and mean that you're getting more contact time on mobs and bosses and things, and it just increases your overall DPS, which those little fine, minute details just helps you be way more efficient in your interrupts, your utility, and react quicker with a lot of these things. Particularly as a spellcaster, you don't want to be in the middle of a spell and then you have to, you thought that you used your stun or your dispersion or whatever it may be, but actually you didn't because you didn't have a cancel or cancel cast macro in that. I might even do the same thing with power word shield and things like that, or fade. abilities that I want to be able to press very, very quickly and not have to stop my spellcast in order to do so. So things like that, those are useful little macros, and those are things that I would encourage you to try and pick up when you are just playing even your main spec, whatever it may be. Things like that that you're going to be wanting to be able to press as soon as you possibly can. At this point as well, we can have a little gear update. So I did start level, in fact, we can go back a little bit. I did start level 60 with 140 something item level. I did manage to pick up a necklace at 233. I bought some braces from a vendor in Zereth Mortis for some gold. I got this trinket right now I'm going to get in a second. That's like 160 item level, something like that. A 242 ring from Zereth Mortis as well that actually Titan Forged or Warforged or something, whatever it did. It forged something. So my item level's starting to pick up a little bit. And right now I'm looking at it and I need 185, I think, to get into Heroic Dungeons, and I need 240 item level to get into LFR. However, I don't know if I actually will be doing LFR, because in my head, it's a little bit, I think that's a little bit cheating in a sense, and honestly, I don't think I want to do LFR, so that's a little gear update by this point in the challenge. So after that, I was talking to chat, and they made me realize, wait, why am I trying to do all this stuff to get like 150 item level gear from World Quest when I can actually just do normal dungeons at level 60 and get something like 230, 240 item level from those items? So I immediately was like, yeah, what the hell am I doing? Let's queue up a normal dungeon, of which I did. And a funny thing that I want to be doing during this challenge is actually allowing a lot of other individuals, like, I want to see how they play, I want to see how they think, and it was allowing other people to have those hero moments and take the pressure of the key and see how they respond to it. But I also wanted to make sure that I was helping the group where I could. So you have somebody grabbing an orb, and I'm like leap of faithing them back to me so that they can bring their orb in quicker. I'm looking here, I'm gonna bring in a master spell right now. I wait for everybody to stack up. I've got this debuff, this magic debuff. Everybody lines in quickly, nicely, and boom, that's removing 4 or 5 stacks. This helps the healer out massively during this stage, particularly because I think it was maybe the tank, I think it was, that threw the spear and actually missed the first time. And then we had this spear here, the second spear, which I started laughing, started cracking up. He was like, oh no, we've missed a second spear in a row. But actually, for whatever reason, that one somehow hit. Maybe that was just a visual bug, but there are always times when you can do things to help your group. And you may look at this and go, well, it's only a normal dungeon. Who cares about master spelling? That wasn't going to kill us anyway. Or who cares about leap of faithing? We had enough time to do this anyway. What's the point in doing any of these things? Well, it's muscle memory. It's always just an opportunity for you to remember to do something and to learn and go, right, when I'm on this boss or this part of a dungeon, this is my job. And if you start practicing it in the normal dungeons, then by the time you get into that 25 key or that 30 key, you already know because you've done it 1,000 times already. So you don't even have to think, can I do this? Should I do this? It's just ingrained in you. So it's really, really important to start practicing these things early and start getting used to them. And you know what? The best part is, hopefully, if people in your group are switched on as well, they'll notice these things. They'll see that you've been master spelling. Like the healer will look and go, oh no, everyone's got this magic debuff on them. Uh-oh, like I'm drowning here. What do I do? And then they see, oh, a master spell came in. Wow, okay, wait, who was that? Oh, the shadow priest in my group. Wow, okay, they're paying attention. This is only a normal dungeon. I can't believe they even did that. Why did they do that? Shouldn't everybody suck in a normal dungeon? And it's the kind of thing that will get you invited back more and get you invited back again. And it's something that's going to be critical and paramount to me in this series. It's something that I'm going to not only try and remember myself, but teach others. Because this is what separates the okay players or the lackluster players. And this is what makes them fantastic players. That's all the difference. That's all it is. It's just, that's the difference in player caliber. It's just every moment during a key thinking, can I do something here? Could I have done something to help? And so it's very, very important for me to always be doing these things. And it's the kind of thing that's going to get you invited back to groups, and that's the most important aspect of doing these things. But at this stage in the day, I was like, right, things are getting on a little bit. Let's see if we can jump into a Mythic 0. And I am very under-geared for a Mythic 0. Mythic 0's dropped 260 item level right now, or 262, and I am like 180 item level. So I am like very under-geared. I'm going to do like no damage. I sign up to not even a handful of keys, and I somehow get invited to a group. And I wanted to make sure, look, I'm scanning across these players, I've got my Raider IO add-on. I wanted to make sure that this isn't a group of players that recognize me, that know me, that are for some reason watching my stream and stuff. And I look in, none of them have high Raider IO from previous seasons. So I'm like, right, okay, this is just a group, and they just look for a player and they grabbed me in. So cool, let's do it. So I jump into it and I get going. And so our group composition for this, I mean, I go into it and I say, hey, I'm Necro. That obviously is a benefit in Theater of Pain, and it's something where it's like, hey, it's useful to have me here. I've identified that I'm a Necro Lord and that's going to be useful in this key. So immediately it already makes some of the players in the group go, or it should hopefully make them go, oh, this person is aware of their role here. Cool. That means that they're probably going to be switched on, and it just gives everyone a little bit of faith and stops them from maybe wanting to kick me once they've invited me and inspected my gear. But we jump in. They already start pulling a bit of trash without me, which makes me forget to apply my power word Fortitude, which is probably one of the most important things I can bring to a group as a Shadow Priest, giving everyone in the group Fortitude, giving them a group buff, especially in like a tyrannical Theater of Pain, where you got Zav Wing, that extra bit of stamina can help. And yeah, just very, very helpful to be able to do that. But that's going to be something that I need to build that habit, jumping into a dungeon, immediately buffing up, getting ready to go. So we come to the first boss here. I saved my cooldowns on that first pack because I thought, right, well, these things are going to die quite quickly. I wanted to test the damage of the group as well, and I thought, right, I'll hold back on my cooldowns. I'll wait and see, are we going to smash through this or not? I also here, being a ranged player, this is fresh for me, this is new, so I'm standing quite far back. I want to get straight into the action and I want to start casting as soon as possible, but what I really could do here to help the group is to move in, and even now after that ad comes in and stuns me, I end up not moving into the group too early, which is really bad because it just makes it easier for the group if they can immediately see, oh, this person's stunned, I need to get them out of it. So yeah, that was quite bad of me, but of course I'm looking for this ad. I try and give it a quick fear, trying to test what actually works on it, what I can do to like incap it, stun it, whatever I can do to stop that mob from stunning somebody. And then I'm just playing this fight through, and I mean, from a DPS rotation standpoint, yeah, I'm trying to make sure everything has Vampiric Touch on them, has Shadow Word Pain, and then I'm just Mind Blasting, and when everything's stacked up, I need to find out what the AoE Mind Flay is, but whatever the AoE Mind Flay is, I'm doing that, and then I'm also doing my Searing Nightmare to make sure that I'm not only ticking my Shadow Word Pains on everyone, but that they're ticking harder then, because everything's already got it on them. It does 100% increased damage, if things already have Shadow Word Pain. So I'm aware of that, and then I'm just kind of going through my rotation and trying to pick off Desia here, because it's the most important mob to deal with. Meanwhile, I'm also taking note of the key in the group and what people in my dungeon are doing, and a first boss, especially in Theater of Pain, because it's the first thing you do in a Theater of Pain, it's a really good dungeon to get a sense of the caliber of skill of the players in the group. Are people going to be stunning the mob that's stunning the players in the group, or are they not? Are people going to be kicking the searing bolts, I believe they're called, or are they not? Because that's a big healer deal. If those bolts go through, targets a specific player, does a lot of damage. So you want to make sure that you're looking out for those as a DPS and you can interrupt. But also, there's a soothe. We do have a Feral Druid in the group, and I was looking, being like, right, are they going to soothe the shield of Desia? Because if not, we have to... Not only does Desia run around chasing this player, but also Desia then develops a shield on them. So it's like, right, we need to deal with this soothe and get that dealt with. So I was tracking whether or not they're going to be doing it, and getting a scope out of the players, just to see, you know, the caliber of skill and the experience and all that kind of stuff. So it's a fun little exercise as well to learn about players and see how people actually do mechanics and keys, and whether they bother or not, whether they know. Something I'm also very aware of, though, is that And we spoke about this on stream a little bit, about like the ego of high Mythic Plus players compared to lower Mythic Plus players. You know, who's more toxic, or are both groups toxic? Is one group toxic? And for me, it's like, if I know a piece of information in a key that can be helpful to somebody, I don't like to offer up that information. I don't like to just say, oh, hey, you can do this. You can soothe that mob, by the way. Because they might turn around and be like, bro, leave me alone. Like, you know, who the hell are you? Who do you think you are? And it can come across arrogant, or it can come across as like me having a go at them and being like, bro, soothe. And then they might be like, whoa, dude, like, okay, I didn't know, sorry. Like, and it can put people on guard. And one thing I say about Mythic Plus is, you know what? Everybody that's doing Mythic Plus, they are just frightened that something in the key is going to go wrong, and they're going to get blamed for it. And that's all anyone is thinking in Mythic Plus, especially in a pug. So it's something to like be aware of, and it's something that I try not to offer out that information unless people like ask on, oh, could I have done something there? Then I'll offer that up, and that's fine. So another fun thing when I was doing these dungeons as well is like going from a 15-second kick on my feral to then a 45-second kick or interrupt on Shadow Priest was really like jarring. I mentally in my head, I'm like, right, it's been at least 15 seconds now. My kick should be available, but obviously it isn't. And then I'm thinking in my head, like, I'm aware it's 45 seconds. In my head, I'm like, oh, okay, it must have been 45 seconds by now, right? And it's like my kick still has 8 seconds left on CD, and I'm just already spamming it. I'm just like, whoa, wait, what? This is so strange. There are mechanics happening, and I want to try and deal with them, and I just have nothing here. There's nothing in the tank. So getting used to that is really weird, and I feel for range players in that they don't have as much access to some of these things. Of course, there is a talent that reduces the interrupt down to 30 seconds, but I didn't have it because I like also having a stun. I'd rather have a longer interrupt and a stun than just have a slightly less long interrupt, because no matter what, with a shorter interrupt, I'm never going to be able to do like solo interrupt to mob. So what's the point? I may as well just take the stun as well. So that's kind of my rationale with that, my thinking with that. But these guys in general were pretty good in this Mythic Zero, and we seemed to get through it pretty cleanly. There were perhaps some issues that you'll see later on in the dungeon where I'm trolling, but it was limit testing. And on this level of key, something where it's very non-punishing, these are the levels of dungeon where I like to test things out, and I like to say, right, can I use a bit of my toolkit or my utility or something? Can I use something in my class in order to do something special? Something that speeds me up, or something that saves us time, or like, what can I do? Is there anything I can do here? So I'm constantly thinking about those things, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So I'm also aware of like my positioning as well. So I'm doing Sav here. I know that he's going to be doing his massive slam or his like triple rotation after he does his Might of Maldraxxus, and he's going to be looking to Deafening Crash. So I stand just outside of that range, unaware of the Shadow Lock, by the way, completely forgot about that. And then I'm just looking to kind of like shimmy around. I'm aware that that priest is very slow, so it's something that's constantly going through my head on this fight. And then I end up being thrown into the PvP round, and this guy Shadow Locks me. Are you kidding? First cast, he Shadow Locks me. Look at my face. I'm like, are you serious, bro? Like, this guy. I start smirking to myself because it's actually kind of hilarious. Kind of funny that he's doing this. So then I start doing shit with him, like moving behind him so he can't cast. I'm like stunning him, fearing him, interrupting him, like doing whatever I can, popping my mind bender on him and stuff. But eventually, like, he just has that much more item level on me, he's just gonna kill me. Like, he's even like healing surging himself and everything. He went to Stormkeeper. Like, this was a naughty boy, and I definitely try and get him back with it later in the key. But this was, I mean, I respect that guy. I respect that guy. I didn't expect it, but I respect it. That's certainly for sure. So that was a bit of fun. Unfortunately, I lost that one, but if I ever meet him again, we'll see if things end up going that way still. And then yeah, even on this key level, I'm trying to do mechanics. I know some of these hits probably won't kill me, but again, for me, I'm not somebody who relies heavily on like weak auras and add-ons and things. I do have certain add-ons and weak auras for like certain aspects. It's good to track interrupts in a group. That's just something that I think is like vital. Like there's some definitely some room with Mythic Plus where you can say, you know what, that weak aura just isn't really for me. Like I'm not really interested in grabbing that. But some things I think are mandatory, and one of those would be an interrupt rotation tracker, just so you know that like you're not stacking interrupts, or if like you're the only person with an interrupt that you should do the next one. Things like that in pugs are just gonna be the, like, actually be the difference between timing a key or depleting a key, is going to come down to interrupt tracking and stuff like that. So some of these are very, very useful to have. But I'm definitely a guy who learns something by failing over and over again, and just letting my brain get really annoyed at myself and being like, God, I shouldn't have. Man, I knew that was going to happen. I knew that mechanic was going to happen, but I just kind of lapsed a second. Especially as a streamer as well, right? Because I'm constantly talking to chat, I'm interacting with them. That's the whole reason I stream. I can definitely have lapsed moments where I just kind of forget about things, and I'm not paying enough attention. So trying to get that muscle memory, that brain memory of just like, this thing is going to occur, I need to be ready for it. How long does it take for me to auto run across, like, how long does it take me to auto run 5 yards, 10 yards? I just learn the kind of muscle memory of that. It's not even a muscle memory, it's like just like a memory. It's just a mind memory, just like an awareness thing. So I'm definitely trying to train myself with all of these things, especially on a very slow class like Shadow Priest. But I mean, for now, like, I've been talking a lot about around the way of what I'm thinking going through a lot of these keys, but I also want to be actually just talking through some of the rotation so far and how I'm actually doing. And I mean, it's still hard in this level of dungeon because things do still die very quickly. Like right there, everyone's doing a lot of damage. Okay, this is one of my moments. Where I go, right, can I levitate across this gap? And I go, right, I can't levitate across this gap. Right, I can't do it because I had a dot on me. So I was thinking like, oh, I think this dot has maybe this dot has maybe been the thing that canceled my levitate. I know, I'll try it again. And it turns out, chat, that no, it was not the levitate, or it was not the dot that I had on me canceling the levitate. It's just that Blizzard decided that you cannot levitate across this. So I kind of griefed my team a little bit. We can skip ahead, nothing to see here, no problems. This is the reason for my low overall, I promise. But again, I'd rather test this in a Mythic 0, and worst case I get kicked from a Mythic 0, than testing that in a 15 or something, and then getting kicked from a 15. But I go into this boss now, and I'm doing my single target rotation. I know my Vampiric Touch is super important to get up on the target immediately, then also my Shadow Word Pain. Then, if I have any Insanity, I want to be getting my Devouring Plague up on the target. Those are the 3 dots that are going to activate my Mastery. You get an increased amount of damage whenever you have a dot on the target. That is either Vampiric, Shadow Word Pain, or Devouring Plague. And if it's all 3, perfect. They all work well together, they all stack, right? So, fantastic. Then after that, I know I'm just going through this like Mind Flay, 2 ticks of Mind Flay, then you recast Mind Flay, 2 ticks of Mind Flay, recast Mind Flay, and you're Mind Blasting whenever you can, whenever it's off CD, and whenever you get procs of it during your Mind Flay. I think it's not Devouring Plague, I can't remember what the proc is. I will learn that though for next week, and I'll figure that out. Meanwhile, trying to do this like big master spell here to try and remove these dots. I didn't end up casting it because the dots had already kind of faded, but I look to recast it soon because 2 people get this application of a magic debuff. So I'm looking at the Phantasmal Parasite that's about to get cast right now. So I'm looking to help the team and the healer wherever I can with this. But meanwhile, I'm doing my rotation. I do my Void Form. Is it Void Eruption that you cast? I think that's it. So I proc my Void Form as well on single target. So that then I can be doing my Void Bolts, my Mind Blast, and alternating between the 2. So far, that's what I think my single target rotation is. Maintain my 3 dots, Devouring Plague whenever I can, and apply that last. Big upgrade, by the way. Big upgrade, 262 chest. I thought that maybe that could be a tier piece, but unfortunately not, because you cannot upgrade this Mythic Zero gear anymore because of how Blizzard are having things work with the new seasonal dungeons. So, bit of a bummer, but still really good to get a leech piece, 262. That's going to come in really handy. But yeah, during my single target rotation, that's kind of what's running through my head. Maintaining those 3 dots, making sure that I get my Void Eruption going and my Void Form, and then I can be going into these like Void Bolt plus Mind Blast rotations, and then whenever those are on cooldown, I do like maybe 1 to 2 ticks of Mind Flay before those things then reset again, and I can alternate between Mind Blasting and Void Bolting, and that's what I'm trying to do. However, on AoE, I'm very aware of Mind Searing, learn the name of it now, Mind Searing and Searing Nightmare. I'm aware of like I need to be doing that in AoE because that's like my AoE rotation, right? But when things are spreading out like this, it was actually really hard to do that because things are dying quickly, things are spreading out. So it's actually quite difficult to do that. So I was even just doing a little bit of a single target rotation at times because at least I could do that on a high health mob and actually get a full-time cast off. So that's kind of running through my head. I'm aware then as well, like I'm overcapping on my insanity quite a bit. So something that I'm aware of is making sure that I'm keeping track of that. But like I was saying earlier in the video, that comes with time and practice and learning in these dungeons. Like, or, well, just learning in general, getting a feel of the spec. Like for Feral, for example, I know I can do 3 combo point generators, then check my energy, my combo points, because I'll probably be at 4 or 5 at that point. Do another 3, then a finisher. Another 3, then a finisher. It's never going to be 2, it might be 4. But it's always, on average, going to be 3 combo point generators, then a finisher. So it's like this very cyclical thing, and I'm trying to learn the cycle that comes with Shadow Priest, and that like, right, I've done X amount of abilities, I should have 100 insanity now. I can double Devouring Plague on a single target, or I can Mind Sear Searing Nightmare, and things like that. So trying to learn that rhythm is definitely the thing that's going to take time, and also I'm having these moments still in these keys where things are dying around me, and I'm kind of like, wait, what do I want to do next? Do I want to Mind Sear and Searing Nightmare, or do I want to like Mind Blast here, or should I Void Bolt? How many targets are we on? At what point do I want to shift my rotations around? So I'm trying to figure those things out, and because the global cooldowns, because my abilities are coming up quicker than I can actually mentally like think ahead at this stage, sometimes I'm recasting my Vampiric Touch on a mob that has 20 seconds left on Vampiric Touch, and I'm just like doing buttons that don't really make sense and I don't need to press, and it's just like a DPS loss, but I'm like just not, my brain isn't quick enough yet. So this was like the biggest struggle I was finding in some of these dungeons, were mobs dying too quickly, and then me not being able to actually, me not keeping up with the global cooldown and planning ahead what I wanted to do next at times. And when things got stressful, when I needed to like move 5 yards because of a mechanic on the ground, like we just saw, or if like a mob is dying, shifting my rotation, going like, right, okay, what's my order of priority? Establishing that is taking time. And again, going from melee to ranged, it becomes even more of a big deal, because at least with melee, you could just press a button and like you can forget about it. It was one global. But with a cast, if you're doing the wrong cast, is that a 3-second cast, a 0.5-second cast? Is that just a global? Like, how much time am I now losing? If I start casting an ability and it's the wrong ability, and then I have to recast something else, I've just lost like a global and 0.5 seconds. So it's like, it all adds up, and it all adds up, and that's going to be that min-maxing that I'm going to try and establish on Shadow Priest. But something that I learned here as well is my Unholy Nova, trying to do that on pull, because I was finding like, well, and I actually asked, so this was my first question, and by the way, the video is probably going to be a little bit laggy here. In fact, we'll probably skip ahead a little bit. The video was a little bit laggy here because of, I don't know, for some reason I think my PC had just had enough, and it was like, stream was fine, but my video is just rough, so we'll skip on. But you also keep an eye out on Bosco during this this boss pull, because, you know, maybe I want to give him a little bit of payback from that previous PvP round. So I don't know, just keep an eye on Bosco during this during this boss. Let's see what happens. But yeah, so something that I'm like, so something that I was kind of wondering here. See you, Bosco. Something that I'm wondering here is, and I actually asked Public, I was discussing it with them, because I'm okay with chat helping me when I'm actually coming to them with things that I think I've figured out at this stage. And as I play more and more, I'm going to kind of get to grips with these things. But I said, I know that the mastery increases your damage. Like, your mastery works by when you have Vampiric Touch, Shadow of Pain, and Devouring Plague on a target, you get stacking damage increase per dot of those that you have on the target. So if you have just one or all three, you're going to be gaining that damage. So the best case scenario is to have all three and on the target, and then start doing, you know, Mind Flays, Mind Blasts, Void Bolts, that kind of thing. And that's how you're going to min-max your damage. But I was wondering with Unholy Nova if it snapshots or dynamically scales with your mastery. And what I mean by that is, like, that damage buff that I gain from having my 3 dots on the target, if I apply my Unholy Nova and then I put three dots on the target, will my Unholy Nova damage scale up, or will it not scale up? Will it snapshot, or will it dynamically scale as I start adding these dots onto the target? And I believe, forgive me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words in Public's mouth because I may actually be misremembering now, but I believe Public said that it is, well, he said it's dynamically, well, he said it doesn't snapshot. So that means in my head, I can apply my Unholy Nova, and then I can apply my Vampiric Touch, then my Shadow of Pain, then my Devouring Plague. Or worst case, like I just did here, Vampiric Touch, then Shadow of Pain, then Unholy Nova, and then making sure that my Devouring Plague is my last ability before I start Void Bolting and stuff like that, because Devouring Plague only lasts a few seconds on the mob, and it's very insanity heavy. So it's very, very costly to be using, and it doesn't last a whole lot of time. But I think the best thing to do is either Vampiric Touch, then Shadow of Pain, then Unholy Nova, or to just Unholy Nova on pull, and then it will just scale. But what Public actually told me is that Unholy Nova is very weird, because apparently, say you have like 10 mobs, it will do damage based on how many mobs you hit with the ability. But if then, say, 5 of those mobs die, the damage from your Unholy Nova won't adjust to the fact that there are only now 5 targets that that Unholy Nova is still on. It will actually still be doing the damage as if there were 10 targets. So if you apply, what I mean by this, if you apply your Unholy Nova and then things start dying, you're actually losing damage from that Unholy Nova. It's actually better if there are small mobs in a group that are going to die like within the first 2 or 3 seconds of the pull, then you should hold your Unholy Nova until those mobs die, then use it so that you get the maximum amount of damage on the remaining mobs that are going to be there. So that's what I have kind of learned when it comes to Unholy Nova. Now, I also ended up here, not only did I get a chest piece, but I also got a waist. So I'd actually forgot about that. I ended up getting 2 262 pieces here. I also have now my own keystone. So I can even try starting my own Mythic Plus. So that's what I ended up doing. Right now, I'm not too concerned about my overall DPS. I know at this item level, I'm going to be like way below the healer. I don't have conduits like properly leveled. I don't have any legendaries. I don't have my tier set. So when I have all those things, it's really going to come online, and that'll be quite cool. I'm not too worried about my DPS right now. I'm just learning about how the whole rotation kind of works together and how it all how it all synchronizes. So that's kind of what I'm keeping focused on at the moment. But yeah, that was like my first Mythic Zero experience. I mean, you could look at it and be like, oh, you got carried through Mythic Zero. And in a sense, yes, of course. But also, Mythic Zero is so easy that I really don't think damage really matters and stuff like that. We completed the dungeon in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. It wasn't too long. And yeah, it was a fun little experience. I do still think that things are dying way too quickly for me to really ramp up. And I'm also at a very low haste level. So there's a lot of things that I could have improved and just get more fluid with the rotation. But I was pretty happy with like my first Mythic Zero. Managed to secure a couple pieces of gear, and also kind of kept an eye on how I could do things in that dungeon. You know, can I shackle undead this thing? Can I not? Can I fear this thing, stun this thing? Well, what can I do with these particular mobs to help out my group? And so it was a nice little learning curve there with that. and figuring out what I can do with Shadow Priest. But this was my first Mythic 0. This was basically like the full length of my first week of playing on this character. I did try and get into a few other dungeons, but unfortunately, I was struggling. I was getting declined from things, so I was like, right, I'll do a heroic dungeon instead. So I ended up opting to do just another heroic dungeon, yeah, that was kind of where I called it a day for the first week. So after my first week of playing this Shadow Priest, where am I at? Let's take a look. Let's get a full recap. So, I leveled up from 50 to 60. I managed to start my conquest in Zereth Mortis. I'm currently sitting at level 78 for my Renown. My Conduits still have a ways to go, but that's all good. Not currently rocking a legendary or any kind of tier set nonsense at all at the moment. And I've got a few pieces of gear. I've got a couple rings from Zereth Mortis. I haven't really focused, well, I haven't focused at all on stats at the moment. I am fully just taking highest item level right now because that ultimately is going to be what gets me into dungeons, gets me into groups. It doesn't matter if I'm fully optimized at 200 item level or if I'm terribly optimized, unoptimized at 250 item level. I'm more likely to get into group at 250. So that's what I'm trying to aim for right now. I'm currently 190 item level, which means I can get into heroic dungeon queues. I can maybe start jumping into some mythic zeros more easily. And I'm nowhere near jumping into LFR or anything like that. Next week, my sort of plan is to jump into more mythic zeros if I can. I'm even going to potentially try and get a... I mean, I'm not going to have a +2 or anything done like that this week. Can't even find my keystone now. There it is. I'm unfortunately probably not going to get a keystone done. I would be having to do that off stream, and I don't want to do that off stream and then you guys miss out on the content and the experience. So I'll be saving this, and I'll just do a key next week, and that's fine. So next week will be like the official starting of hopefully jumping into Mythic Plus and starting that journey, trying to just get my key as high as possible. And I think I'll start by just pugging my own key and just seeing the fluctuations in how these keys go. But that is my full roundup of week 1, day 1 of my experience as a Shadow Priest. Let me know in the comment section below if you like this, or there's certain things whilst I'm doing these dungeons, doing these keys that you would like to have me talk about. Are there any things you want me to focus on? Do you like me explaining my thought process, my mentality when I'm approaching these dungeons, what I'm doing there? Or do you want me to focus more so on like DPS optimization, or just kind of chill and talk and have fun and just talk about stuff generally in WoW? Like what do you guys want to hear from me during these challenges? I really appreciate you watching. Please, in the comment section, don't give me tips, don't tell me the best legendaries and stuff like that. Like, don't spoil this for me. I appreciate if you do have any advice, but just follow along and see if I end up picking up the right things or whether I get them wrong, and it'll be fun to see. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you hopefully next week for the next one. Remember, you can check me out on twitch.tv/Psybear_TV, and you can catch me there live Monday to Friday, the mornings and afternoons and evenings on EU, on England time. So thanks for watching. See you again.